Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to the Legal Hands to the Face show on the first day after Christmas on a Victory Tuesday for our Philadelphia Eagles. And we should be sitting here after celebrating Christmas with the family, watching the Philadelphia Eagles improve to 11-4. We should all be sitting here feeling so good, feeling great, nothing to worry about. But that's just not the reality when you're watching this Philadelphia Eagles team. And I'm going to try to keep it positive. I'm really going to try to keep it positive. I know everyone's still in that Christmas spirit, but I have to keep it real as well. So I'll try to give you some positive things. We'll try to look at the bright side of a team that is 11-4. That is tied for the top seed in the NFC. But we're also going to have to take a look at reality as well. And I know that makes some of our diehard Eagles fans, as they like to call themselves, not happy. But I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what I see and what I think the reality is with this team. So welcome into the Legal Hands to the Face show. We are streaming live on YouTube, being simulcast on the JAKIB Sports Network, as well as my YouTube channel, Bill Colarulo and Legal Hands to the Face Sports Talk. We're also streaming live on TikTok. So what's up to our TikTok crew checking in on the Legal Hands to the Face show? Not sure what type of viewership we're going to get tonight. The day after Christmas is always an interesting day. But it looks like we got some people strolling in, so it is good to see everybody. We're going to do just a quick 1-hour show tonight. And if you're listening along on the podcast, we always upload the audio to all your favorite podcast platforms after the show. If you're listening on the podcast, would really mean a lot if you could leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. Help us reach more Eagles fans. And if you hear me referencing the chat, it's because we are also live on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, as well as Twitter. So if you want to engage in a live show and you only listen to the audio, make sure you check it out. We usually go live the night after every game at 6:30. Today, a little bit different just because of the holiday. But I see some of my Legal Hands to the Face crew, some of my Power Hour crew who were here for the Philly Sports Power Hour today checking in. But let's dive right in because we have a lot to talk about in this quick 1-hour show. Let's start with the positives. Philadelphia Eagles win the game 33-25 against a division opponent, the New York Giants. The Cowboys lose on a last-second field goal to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday, 22-20. And the San Francisco 49ers showed us that they are, in fact, human and get dominated by the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas night, 33-19. Brock Purdy, one of the worst games of his young NFL career, throwing 4 interceptions in that game. So the Philadelphia Eagles are now tied for the best record in the NFC with the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. And we'll talk about some of the tiebreakers later on in the show and what would need to unfold for our Philadelphia Eagles to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. Not likely, but certainly possible. And we'll also talk about something that's going to make a lot of Eagles fans sick. And we're probably all going to have to take a shower on Saturday night after we do it. But we may have to root for the Dallas Cowboys on Saturday. It pains me to even say that But we'll talk about the tiebreakers in a second and why we probably need the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Detroit Lions on Saturday night. But the Eagles now control their own destiny when it comes to the NFC East. That's why it doesn't matter if the Cowboys win their next two. As long as the Philadelphia Eagles win their next two games, they will be the NFC East champions for the second straight season. But now, what we'd be talking about is, can they get to the 2 seed? Can they get to the 1 seed? And we'll get into that in a second. And I see people in the chat, Mike Tobin, saying he just threw up when I said we got to root for the Cowboys. But you'll hear why later on in the show. But let's take a look at this game. I said it last week. If you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, at Bill Colarulo, at Legal Hands to the Face on Instagram. If you follow me on social media, I was saying it all week leading up to this Giants game, and you knew, if you follow the NFL, that this Giants team stinks. This Giants team's offense was terrible coming into this game. And the whole Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, what a nice story for North Jersey Italians. He was not playing well. When you really dove deeper into the numbers, in 5 starts, they were 3-2. Yes, he won 3 straight games. But if you looked at those 3 straight wins, Tommy DeVito never had more than 300 yards more than one time. And I'm talking total offense. I'm not even talking 300 yards passing. In Tommy DeVito's 5 starts, the New York Giants only had more than 300 total yards of offense one time. They had less than 200 total yards of offense twice. The reason they won those 3 straight games in there was because their defense forced 12 turnovers. They had 12 takeaways in those 3 games. DeVito, in his 5 starts, they were only averaging 17.5 points per game. This was not a good offense, even with Tommy Cutlets. And you saw it in the first half. He should not be an NFL quarterback in this league. Did the Eagles some favors by winning those 3 games, because now the Giants will have a lower draft pick in this year's draft. They're still stuck with Daniel Jones and that big contract. But outside of that, you may have seen the last of Tommy Cutlets. So hopefully Tommy Cutlets made as much money as he could off of North Jersey pizza places, because you may have seen his 15 minutes of fame end on Christmas Day. And you look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, we wanted them to dominate. We wanted to feel great when Christmas Day ended with a dominant performance against not only a bad Giants offense, but a really bad Giants defense. The Giants defense was in the bottom of almost every single category. They were 24th in yards against, 29th in rushing yards against, 25th in points per game. So you wanted to see this Eagles offense get it right. You wanted to see that defense dominate. And in the first half, up until about 1 minute left in that second quarter, it looked like we were getting our Christmas wish. It looked like everything was going our way, that this was our get-right game that the Eagles needed to get things right for this hopeful playoff run. 20-3 at the end of that first half. 212 yards to only 103. The Eagles' third down defense, which was the worst in the NFL coming in, held the Giants in the first half to 1 of 8 for only 12%. Everything looked good. We even had some nice play designs on offense. And I want to talk about yards after catch in a minute. But did you see the Devontae Smith touchdown? How nice that was. Not a deep throw, but hit him in stride, in open space, giving your playmakers an opportunity to make plays after the catch. And I want to talk about that later in the show, because that's something that has been lacking with this Eagles offense. So that was a positive sign, especially in the first half. You even had Britton Covey with a big punt return. Britton Covey's going to be an all-pro this year. Maybe not an all-pro, but definitely a Pro Bowler for the NFC. And I said it today on the Philly Sports Power Hour. It isn't often, that we get to pat ourselves on the back for being right. But if you follow me on Instagram, I was saying it all offseason that the Britton Covey hate was overstated. That if you looked at what he did the last few games of the season last year, that he was going to be a really good punt returner. So at least I was right about that. Unfortunately, I've been right about a couple other things with this Eagles team as well, especially that defense. But at least I was right on a positive with Britton Covey. But he has a big punt return. Offense is looking great. But that's when things started to fall apart. Right at the end of that first half, right at the end of that second quarter, it started with bad clock management by Nick Sirianni. There was about 50 seconds left in the second quarter. They're driving down the field, and Sirianni doesn't take a timeout and basically wastes 18 or so seconds off the clock. He admitted it today at his press conference. It was a mistake. They should have taken the timeout sooner. That was mistake number one. And then mistake number two, 18 seconds left, no timeouts. Jalen Hurts rolls out to his right. He has a clear path to the sidelines. But instead of going out of bounds to stop the clock to set up a last-second field goal to end the half, he decides to cut back inside to try to score a touchdown. Gets tackled in bounds and catches a huge break, with Bobby Okereke, the linebacker for the Giants, getting a defensive delay of game call. Stops the clock, allows them to kick the field goal. But horrible clock management right there. Bad situational football right there. And if that was the first time we saw bad situational football on offense, you say, okay, just a quick brain fart by Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. And I told you guys I'm going to try to keep it positive. It is Christmas. But it's hard to be positive when you keep seeing bad situational football by this offense. And when you play a JV team like the New York Giants were, you can get away with it. But as we get into the playoffs and you start to play against these better upper echelon teams, you cannot afford mental mistakes like that. And I'm not absolving Jalen Hurts here. He needs to do better. He needs to be better in that moment and know no timeouts. I got to get out of bounds. But that's also really bad coaching by Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni, who are the offensive coach and the head coach. Because right before that play, Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni should be telling every single player on the Eagles offense, no timeouts. If you get the ball, get out of bounds. That should have been reiterated in the huddle by Jalen Hurts because Brian Johnson should have told him in his headset. Nick Sirianni should be screaming it from the sidelines. No timeouts. Get out of bounds if you get tackled in bounds. Just an epic fail right there, and they catch a break. But that's where the sloppiness started, and then what happens? They go into the locker room, opening kickoff. They have a chance to put this game away. They're getting the ball back to start the half. They could drive down the field. They could score a touchdown to make this a 27-3 game, and there's a fumble. It was a freak play. Boston Scott bumped into by Olamide Zaccheaus. But turnovers have been a problem. The Eagles are now a -7 turnover differential on the season. -7. In Jalen Hurts' 15 starts last season, they were a +11. That is a net change of 18 turnovers. That's something this offense and this defense needs to clean up down the stretch. Because when they go to the playoffs, you are not going to win a lot of games in this league when you lose the turnover battle. They've gotten away with it this year. They're 11-4, even with a -7 turnover differential. But that needs to change. The sloppy play needs to change. And then what happens there? Giants score a touchdown. And this is where I had a problem with Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni's play calling, and so did 70,000 fans at Lincoln Financial Field. Because even though you take a step back, and I'm going to be positive, guys, I promise, I'll get to some positives. But you take a step back and you look at the final stats, and it's okay. They ran the ball 35 times. What else do you want? What else does the run the ball crowd want? And I've had people tweeting at me and messaging me on Instagram because last night on the post-game show, I said I still wasn't happy that they ignored the run for stretches at a time, that their philosophy of wanting to go for the big play hurts them almost every single game. And this is what I'm talking about. Even though they ran it 35 times, just listen to this and you will understand what I'm talking about. So the Philadelphia Eagles fumbled the opening kickoff. Giants score a touchdown. It's now a 20-10 game. Eagles get the ball. They go 3 and out. Giants get the ball. Defense stops them. Eagles get the ball back. They have the ball on their own 6-yard line. They start now going on what I think is a perfect drive, a methodical, well-balanced drive down the field. They go from the 6-yard line to the Giants' 47-yard line in 8 plays. They called 4 runs. They called 4 passes. It was beautiful. It was balanced. It was methodical. It wasn't predictable. And they move it from the 6 to the 47, almost 51 yards down the field. And then what happens? They get pass happy again. They can't be patient, this offense, with Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson. They proceed to then, at that point, call 7 straight pass plays. So they went from the 6-yard line to the 46 with a beautifully balanced 4-and-4 drive. They then call 7 straight. And guess what happens on the 7th straight pass? Dallas Goedert slips. Hurts throws the interception. 8 points the other way because they get the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. Why this offense continues to shoot themselves in the foot by going for the big play, by refusing to see what their identity should be, blows my mind. This offense is so effective when they are balanced, when they lean on that running game behind the offensive line. And I'm not saying they need to run the ball 50 times a game. What I'm asking for, and what a lot of fans have been asking for, is a balanced attack. Utilize the run to set up the pass. Make those safeties and those linebackers creep closer to the line of scrimmage. Make them peek in the backfield because you're running the ball down their throat. And now take your shots. But that's not the philosophy of this Eagles offense. And then after they throw 7 straight pass plays, and it results in a pick 6, offense gets the ball back. It's now a 2018 game. Momentum has shifted in a big way. And Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni call 3 more straight pass plays. So now you're looking at 10 straight freaking pass plays when for 3 quarters, 2.5 quarters, you've been methodically driving down the field. And that's where Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown saved that game. The play of the game, in my opinion, it's a 20-18 game. It's a 3rd and 20. And Jalen Hurts steps up in the pocket, rolls a little bit out to the right, and then throws a dime to A.J. Brown for 32 yards on 3rd and 20. If they don't make that play, if the Giants are able to get off the field on that play, you're giving the Giants the ball back in a 2018 ball game with all the momentum on the other side. And then after that play is when Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson hopefully not only woke up in that game, but woke up for the rest of the season and the playoffs and said, let's commit to the run. The rest of that drive, they ran 3 of the next 4 plays, touchdown. Next drive, 4 rushing plays, 6 pass, field goal. Next drive, 7 rushing plays on 8-play drive, field goal. And that was a big drive. I know it only ended in a field goal, but they got the ball back with about 5 minutes left in that game. And it was Christmas Day. We had people here at the house, and I turned to the people I was watching the game with and said, last year's team would have been able to lean on the run and go on a 4 to 5 minute drive with 5 minutes left. And that's exactly what they did. That was promising. You guys want positivity today? I'm giving it to you. In the 4th quarter, that should be this team's identity. Leaning on the run, forcing teams to try to stop your running game. And when they did that, after 10 straight freaking pass plays, can't even say the damn word, gets me so upset, pass plays, they then started to lean on the run, and look what happened. So I'm praying that the positive from this game is that Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni realize what the identity of this offense should be. And you look at 2017, Eagles win the Super Bowl, top 5 rushing offense. Last year, go to the Super Bowl, should have freaking won it. Top 5 rushing offense. I don't want to hear anymore that you don't win games in the NFL by running the football. We're not asking for 50 damn runs a game. We're asking for balance. Utilize the run to set up the pass. But just overall, and then we'll get into more of what I saw that was a positive, but just overall a sloppy performance by the Eagles. You look at the final numbers. Yes, they were great, and we're going to talk about it in a second. But lose the turnover battle. Again, 2-1. Not efficient enough in the red zone. 2 out of 5, 40%. 9 penalties for 65 yards. Giants had 3 penalties. So they got to clean that up. And it doesn't make you a bad fan. I'm sick and tired of seeing the Eagles fans who say, oh, well, don't come back when they're in the playoffs. None of us want to see the Eagles lose, guys. None of us do. That's why we're talking about these things. And I've used this analogy before. We can't be those parents who sit in the stands watching their son or daughter play sports who think they're the greatest thing that ever walked onto the field. And God forbid a coach tries to correct them. If that's what you want, if you just want cheerleaders to come up here and talk about how great this team is, then what are we even talking about the team? Why do we even analyze the team? If they're perfect, then why do we even talk about it? The reason we talk about these things isn't because we're negative, isn't because we want to see the team lose. It's the complete opposite. It's because we want them to win. And guess what? All these players on that team will come and go. And guess who will still be here when every single player on that team is no longer on the Philadelphia Eagles? All of us. Because the fans will be here long after these guys were gone. They were here long before these guys got there. So I don't like to hear you're not a real fan just because you're not shaking your pom-poms all the time. This team has some real issues that need to be fixed. Yes, they are 11-4. Yes, I'm excited that they have the number 1 seed. They're in the playoffs. Excuse me, they don't have the number 1 seed. They're tied right now for the number 1 seed, but they lose the tiebreakers, which we'll talk about. But I'm going to keep it positive. That's my little soapbox rant, I guess. I'm just tired of people who don't allow you to criticize the team simply because they're 11-4. They have some real issues that need to be fixed if we want to go back to a Super Bowl. And look, if your barometer of success was just them making the playoffs, then congratulations. It was a successful season for you. That wasn't the barometer of success that I put on this Philadelphia Eagles team. I don't think it was the barometer that a lot of fans put on this Philadelphia Eagles team. When you go to a Super Bowl and come that close to winning it, and you run it back with the talent that this Philadelphia Eagles offense has, anything less than going back to a Super Bowl would not be a successful season, in my opinion. And I've acknowledged it. I did a video about this on my Instagram. I talked about it on the Philly Sports Power Hour today. I'm acknowledging that we are asking a lot of this team. There's a reason why only 3 Super Bowl losers in 56 years have ever gone back to win a Super Bowl. And when you look at the 3 coaches who have been able to lose a Super Bowl and go back the following year and win it, you're talking about legends. 1971, the Dallas Cowboys and Tom Landry. 1972, the undefeated Miami Dolphins and Don Shula. And 2018, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. So I know we're asking a lot of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and this Eagles organization to get back to a Super Bowl and win it. But that's the standard. That is the standard. And I see a lot of you guys checking in the chat. I appreciate it. Hit that like button for me. Hit that share button. I promised you some positivity. So when we get back from the break, I want to talk about some positives from that Eagles game. A couple of weeks ago, before the Seattle game, I told you there were 3 things I wanted to see from this Eagles team to bring back hope that they had a shot to go back to a Super Bowl. And I even said I would take 2 out of 3, and I think we got 2 out of 3 this weekend. So we'll talk about that as well. So stay right there, guys. If you want some positivity, I'm going to bring it in the next segment. Hit that like button. See you after the break.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up, and go Birds.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back in to the Legal Hands to the Face show on this Victory Tuesday. And I told you guys, or I promised you guys, some positivity after the break, so we're going to bring it. We're going to bring some positive things because there are things to be happy about as we sit here 11-4. There's things that need to improve. We talked about it. But when the Philadelphia Eagles did what the 70,000 fans at Lincoln Financial were chanting to do, which was run the football, Eagles did it well. They ran the ball 35 times yesterday for 170 yards. They averaged 4.9 yards per carry. DeAndre Swift, 20 carries. First time he's had 20 carries since week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings, where he had a $175. But he gets 20 carries, 92 yards, averages 4.6 yards per carry. Gets the TD, and maybe the best part, 10 carries in the fourth quarter to close out that football game. And they mixed it up with Kenny Gainwell. 6 carries for Kenny G, 41 yards, 6.8 yards per carry for Kenny. And when I talk about how I want this football team to establish the run earlier in games, and figure out that their identity should be a balanced attack between run and pass, I'm not talking about running Jalen Hurts more. I didn't like that Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher as far as carries go in that first half. He had 6 carries. DeAndre Swift only had 5. We need to lean on our running backs more often. They have shown us that when you give them opportunities, they're going to get that running game going. And I've said it in the past, even when the running game isn't working, it's working. Simply by making the defense know that you are not one-dimensional, it works. Forcing them to have to worry about the running game as well. And all it takes is one run to open things up. And more positives. Jalen Hurts threw for over 300 yards yesterday. And he did that getting blitzed 83% of his dropbacks. If you guys like blitzing, you would love Wink Martindale on the New York Giants. We knew coming in that no team outside of the Minnesota Vikings blitzed more than Wink Martindale and the New York Giants. And he even blitzed a lot for his standards. He usually blitz about 40 to 50% of the time. He brought the blitz 83% of Jalen Hurts' dropbacks. And even in the face of 83% blitz rate, Jalen threw for over 300 yards. That's promising. And I know he throws an interception, not his fault. We all saw Dallas Goedert's flip. But this is what happens when you're balanced. This is what happens when you open things up a little bit by running the football, forcing the defense to worry about the rush. But what I found maybe even more promising than the fact that they were able to establish the run was the yards after catch that they were able to generate against the New York Giants. In 2022, the Philadelphia Eagles offense was a top 5 offense when it came to yards after catch. They averaged 5.8 yards after catch. They averaged 4.8. Sorry, I'm looking for my notes here. They averaged only 4.8 yards after catch coming into that Giants game. That brought them from being top 5 in the NFL last season to 25th in the NFL this season. Well, why has the yards after catch dropped so much? Personnel's the same. Still have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. So why are your yards after catch dropping so significantly this season compared to last? And for me, there's one simple answer, and it's play design. And those play designs are a direct reflection of Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni. Now, I'm not saying that they can't fix things the rest of the way, because really, that's our only hope. Shane Steichen's not coming back, guys. So if we want to do anything this season, we got to look for the silver linings here. That's what I'm trying to give you. Is you saw an offense last night. Granted, it was against a very bad Giants defense. But you saw an Eagles offense that generated 181 yards after catch. Their average going in per game was only 104. They came close to doubling their yak. Everybody always hears about yak. And the way you get yak is by designing plays to get the ball to your skilled position players in open space. Nobody does it better than the San Francisco 49ers. It's the reason why that offense is so effective, because they get the ball in their playmakers' hands, not by throwing the ball deep down the field every play, but by designing plays that gets them the ball in open space. And that's why it's been so frustrating when you hear Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson talk about explosive plays. I'm fine with explosive plays, but not by dropping back and throwing the ball 30 yards down the field every damn time into double coverage. You design plays that can create explosive opportunities. And you saw them do it last night. On that Devontae Smith 36-yard touchdown, it was a perfect play design where you had Devontae Smith coming across the middle of the field. You created a route concept which took everybody else out of the play, allowing Devontae Smith to catch the ball in stride, in open space, and use his athletic ability, once the ball is in his hands, to take it all the way to the house. And great downfield blocking by Olamide Zaccheaus. And if you're looking for more positives, let's talk about Nick Sirianni finally Nick Sirianni realizing what we have been saying for over a year now, which is to get Quez Watkins off the damn field. Quez Watkins played one offensive snap yesterday. So even though Nick Sirianni came to his defense last week in his press conference, talked about how much faith they still have in Quez, he played one snap. Julio Jones played 20. Olamide Zaccheaus played 18. Britton Covey played one offensive snap. So they finally realized, and all Olamide Zaccheaus has done when given the opportunity, he's not a Pro Bowler, but when he's given the opportunity, he has made plays. And it's plays like that, blocking downfield for your teammates, that can have a big impact on a game. So it was good to see Olamide getting an opportunity, blocking for Devontae Smith. And you saw this Eagles offense generate yak. 181 yards after catch last night compared to their average of 104. They averaged 7.5 yards after catch on receptions last night. San Francisco 49ers were number one in the league coming in at 6.8. That's how good they were last night. So that was promising. Bad Giants defense. Really bad. But you saw better play designs. You did see them start to commit to the run. You saw them even running some pistol formation, which we haven't seen a lot of this year. The pistol formation is when Jalen Hurts is in the shotgun and the running back stands directly behind him. They ran some running plays off of that, mixing some things up. So those were promising things to see on the offensive side of the football. And on the defensive side of the ball is my man Ringo Island in the chat. He was here at the Philly Sports Power Hour. But if we want to keep it positive, how about the job Keely Ringo did again last night? Keely Ringo was targeted 5 times against the Giants. He gave up 3 catches for 18 yards. He had 1 pass breakup, 1 interception for a 25 passer rating. And I see my man Ringo Island in the chat on YouTube checking in. That is promising. Young rookie who some people had a first-round grade put on him in the draft. Young, he was raw coming in. But it looks like this kid could be the real deal at corner. And you want to keep things positive. Let's picture something here. You got Darius Slay hopefully coming back from that knee injury. You have Avonte Maddox coming back from that pectoral injury. You got Zach Cunningham coming back from a knee. You got Nick Morrow coming back from an abdominal injury. And to top things all off, you saw Shaq Leonard making some plays last night. By far the best game he's had this season. And I said before the break, if you remember, 2 weeks ago before the Seattle game, I talked about how I needed to see 3 things the rest of the way. And I would take 2 out of 3, and that would give me some hope that this team could go back to the Super Bowl. The first one, I still don't think we've seen, and that was I wanted to see our offense dominate for 4 quarters. Put it all together for 4 quarters. I still think they are capable of doing that. Some mistakes yesterday prevented that from happening. But that is still a possibility. But the other 2 were, I wanted to see Shaq Leonard be some semblance of what he was when he was an All-Pro in Indianapolis. And I said I wasn't expecting it, but I was hoping for it. That if he could contribute to this defense, that would give me some hope that maybe this defense can get things right down the stretch. And that was before I knew Avonte Maddox may be coming back. That was before I knew Keely Ringo was going to play to the level that he is playing at. So I've talked about at length on this show, on my Instagram, on the Philly Sports Power Hour, how I thought this defense lacked the personnel to go back to another Super Bowl. But if you're telling me that Shaq Leonard may be able to make plays like he was making last night, that Keely Ringo can play at that level down the stretch, that Darius Slay's coming back, that Avonte Maddox is coming back, and Zach Cunningham can play the way he was playing before he went out with injury, maybe this defense could be good enough down the stretch. And when Slay does come back, I think you have to limit James Bradbury's reps. I think Kelee Ringo has earned the opportunity to keep playing on this defense. So when I take a look at this Eagles defense, tempering my excitement a little bit, but there is a chance that they may be able to do some things down the stretch. And I liked what I saw from Matt Patricia yesterday. And again, we have to take all of this with a grain of salt. It's going up against a really bad Giants offense. But at least you saw Matt Patricia changing things up, trying some different things. Not only did they go back and forth between 5-man fronts and 4-man fronts, they went a little big nickel. They threw some dime in. They had Nolan Smith playing the Mike linebacker position. So I like the creativity from Matt Patricia. So that was one of the three things I wanted to see, was this defense hopefully start making plays with Shaq Leonard. But the third thing I wanted to see was I needed to know that the San Francisco 49ers were still human. I wanted them to stumble down the stretch. And man, did we see them stumble last night. Ravens, really good team. But you saw that the San Francisco 49ers are beatable. Brock Purdy, very good quarterback. Better than I ever thought he would be. But you saw him make some really bad decisions last night. And you saw what that Ravens defense was able to do to them. Because we were just talking about that yards after catch and play designs. And the Ravens were able to take away a lot of those short to intermediate routes that gets the ball in the 49ers playmakers' hands in space. But can the Eagles duplicate that type of defense in the playoffs? Won't be easy. Those Ravens have a lot of playmakers on the defensive side of the football. And I'm trying to keep it positive, so I don't want to necessarily bring up Howie Roseman's inability to draft linebackers. But, man, you look at that Ravens team with Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, even the Niners, who didn't play well last night. You look at their linebacker, Fred Warner, in my opinion, and I think a lot of you would agree with me, best linebacker in the NFL. But it's just frustrating when you look at these teams and the linebackers they have on defense making plays. But maybe, just maybe, Shaq Leonard can give us a few games of what he used to be. So, trying to keep it positive for you. Because what we need now to happen the rest of the way is a lot of people are asking, what needs to happen for the Philadelphia Eagles to get the 1 seed or the 2 seed or the 3 seed? So one thing is certain. If the Philadelphia Eagles win their next 2 games, or they win 1 and Dallas loses 1, the Philadelphia Eagles are the NFC East champs. I think that there is a very, very good possibility, knock on wood, that they will win the NFC East. They should win the next 2. And we'll talk quickly before the show ends about the Arizona Cardinals game. But they should win the next 2. But then does that make them a 3, a 2, or a 1? Well, another easy analysis is the San Francisco 49ers. If the 49ers win their next 2, they're the number 1 seed. They own the tiebreaker over the Eagles in the head-to-head matchup. The Niners are at Washington this week. We don't know if it's going to be Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett. Howell played really bad the last 2 games. Brissett came in and did okay. They haven't said who's going to be the quarterback in that game. 49ers, most likely, after getting embarrassed by the Ravens, are going to bounce back, dominate the Commanders. So the Eagles' only hope would come down to Week 18, the Los Angeles Rams. That game is in Santa Clara at the 49ers Stadium. But that game may mean something for the Rams. They're on a strong push to make the playoffs. You look at that Rams team, they've won 5 out of 6 games, and the only game they lost was an overtime loss to the Baltimore Ravens. So there is a possibility that the Rams could beat the San Francisco 49ers the last game of the season. And if that was to happen and the Eagles were to win out, well, then who owns the tiebreaker with the Detroit Lions? Now, this will affect the Eagles being either the 2 seed or the 1 seed when you're going up against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions currently have an 11-4 record as well. They have the Dallas Cowboys this week at Dallas, and then they have the Minnesota Vikings at home last game of the season. This is why I said to start the show, we may all have to take a shower on Saturday night because we may need to root for the Dallas Cowboys, and here's why. If the Eagles win out and the Lions win out, they would have an identical record. It then goes to what your conference record is. Well, that would be tied. The first one is always head-to-head. They didn't play each other. So then it goes to conference record. They would be tied. So then the next tiebreaker is record against common opponents. And the Detroit Lions would own the tiebreaker because they'd have a better record against common opponents than the Philadelphia Eagles. So if the Eagles and the Lions are tied for the 2 seed or the 1 seed, it would go to the Lions. So that's why we need to see the Dallas Cowboys beat the Detroit Lions on Saturday night. And then we need the Rams to beat the 49ers the last game of the season, and the Eagles need to take care of business and win out. And we don't have time to have the whole conversation about whether the Eagles would be better off as a 1 seed or a 2 seed. I know a lot of people are saying they'd be better off as a 2 seed because they wouldn't have to play, most likely, the Cowboys and the 49ers. They'd only have to play one of them. But for me, I want that bye. I want home field. So let's take a look, though, because the Eagles need to worry about themselves. And, guys, before we end the show, like we end every show, we'll do a little Eagles trivia. We always end the Legal Hands to the Face show with a little Eagles trivia I have for you. But let's take a look at the Eagles' next matchup, the Arizona Cardinals. Jonathan Gannon coming to town. And you look at this Cardinals offense. I'm not a big Kyler Murray fan. I think he's overrated. I don't think he's that good. The Cardinals' offense isn't great. They do have the ability to run the football, though. You saw them beat the Cowboys by running for over 200 yards. You saw them put over 200 yards of rushing up against the San Francisco 49ers. So they are 9th in the league in rushing yards per game, but they're 29th in passing. They're only 26th in points. So the offense isn't very good if you can take away the run. So I expect Matt Patricia to probably be in a lot of 5-man fronts on Sunday to stifle that Cardinals rushing attack. And then you look at the Cardinals defense, and this is kind of what you would have expected from a Jonathan Gannon defense. They're 12th against the pass, not bad, but they're 32nd against the run. And the reason I say that's what you would expect from a Jonathan Gannon defense, if you look at the Eagles defense last year, number 1 against the pass, number 16 against the run. Well, the Cardinals are 12th against the pass, 32nd against the run. His defenses tend to give up more rushing yards than they do passing yards. So that's why, once again, we're going to be calling for Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni to please run the damn football this week. The other good thing is Arizona, 32nd in the league in third down defense. No longer do the Philadelphia Eagles sit in the basement on third down defense after that good performance against the Giants. That now belongs to the Arizona Cardinals. So when you look at it on paper, and I know you still have to play the game, the Philadelphia Eagles should dominate this damn game. And if they can limit their mistakes and they can limit their turnovers, there's no reason they can't. It's the only reason the Giants were in that game. You look at all the numbers and all the stats, they dominated almost every single category. It was turnovers, it was penalties. So eliminate those mistakes. Let's play a clean game and let's dominate the Arizona Cardinals. And I hate to say it, let's root for the Dallas Cowboys. I know, it hurts to even say. But I appreciate all you guys here in the chat. A lot more people today than I thought there would be on the day after Christmas. But I should have known my crew always going to deliver when we're talking Eagles. So, guys, for those of you who follow the Philly Sports Power Hour, that's my daily show from 10 to 11 a.m. on the JAKIB Sports Network. We're not doing it tomorrow or Thursday. Jacob's given me 2 days off for the holiday. So I will be back at it on Friday for our Football Friday on the Philly Sports Power Hour. But I will still be posting content, multiple pieces of content a day to TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. So make sure you're following on all social media platforms. And again, guys, if you are listening to the audio of the podcast, it would mean the world if you could leave a review on whatever podcast platform you are on. So make sure you're following on all social media channels and leave us a review on any podcast platform you're on as well. And maybe, guys, this weekend we will see, no word yet on the injury report, but it'd be really nice if they get Avonte Maddox back. It'd be really nice if they get Zach Cunningham, Darius Slay. If these guys all start to come back, watch out. That could be a different defense. And we'll get some words on whether or not Landon Dickerson will be back at left guard, but I did think Sua Opeta stepped in and played really nicely in that game. But before we end our Legal Hands to the Face show tonight, we'll give you a little Eagles trivia, and if you were here in the chat, see if you can get it right. So Jalen Hurts set the single-season record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback yesterday, passing Cam Newton. So it had me thinking about, well, where does he sit with regard to rushing yards in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history? So I got 2 trivia questions for you. So currently, Jalen Hurts sits at number 15 in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history with 2,474 rushing yards. This is the easy part of the question. There are 2 quarterbacks that are higher on that list in Eagles franchise history in rushing yards. Who are they? That's the first part of the question. So if you're here in the chat, who are the 2 quarterbacks in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history who have more rushing yards than Jalen Hurts? Give you guys a couple of seconds to get that one. This one's easy. This should be no problem. Nathan Hoffman comments, Michael Vick and Donovan McNabb. Incorrect. You got half of it right. Donovan McNabb is currently number 11 all time. And there it is. Big Army Boss says Randall Cunningham. Frank Gallo says Randall Cunningham. Those are the 2 quarterbacks who have more rushing yards in Eagles history than Donovan McNabb. Than Jalen Hurts. Donovan McNabb, number 11 with 3,200 yards. Randall Cunningham, number 6 with 4,482. And then here's the next one. This one may be a little bit harder before we end the show. Can you name the top 5 all-time leading rushers in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history? None of them are quarterbacks, obviously, with Randall being at number 6. But who are our top 5 all-time leading rushers in Philadelphia Eagles history? So just throw out names. If you don't have all 5, throw out names and see if we can get all 5 before the end of the show. Some of these I think are pretty easy. Who are the top 5 all-time leading rushers in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history? So Big Army and Frank Gallo both said Shady. Shady is number 1 all-time with 6,792 yards. Wine Niners Wine, Brian Westbrook. Brian Westbrook is number 3 all-time Frank Gallo again. Wilbert Montgomery, number 2. Nathan Hoffman, Deuce, number 5. And Countrywide Eagles podcast, Steve Van Buren. That is our top 5. So number 1 all time, LaShawn McCoy. Number 2, Wilbert Montgomery. Number 3, Brian Westbrook. Number 4, Steve Van Buren. And number 5, Deuce Staley. Great stuff, guys. A lot of knowledgeable Eagles fans here tonight. I love it. Before we end the show, guys, again, thank you for spending this hour with me. I love talking about our Philadelphia Eagles with my crew, so I do appreciate you taking the time to spend this hour. Hit that like button, hit that share button. If you want more, follow me on social, and I will see you guys at the Philly Sports Power Hour for our Football Friday, 10 o'clock, right on the JAKIB Sports Network. As always, guys, go Birds.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.